So guys, of course, let's do our tips for round 15. A lot of teams with the bye this week. This is the final week of byes before we go into the end of the season. But my brother has given me his tips as well. We'll start with my tips for this week though. So on Friday night, I've gone Carlton over the Cats. On Saturday afternoon, I've gone Port Adelaide over Brisbane. The Swans over the Giants. Saturday night, I've gone Melbourne over North Melbourne. And on Sunday, I have gone Essendon over the West Coast Eagles and the Dockers over the Gold Coast. Now, my brother has gone Carlton over the Cats, the Lions over Port Adelaide, the Giants over the Swans, the Demons over North Melbourne, Essendon over the West Coast Eagles, and finally he's gone Fremantle over the Gold Coast Sun. Let's break down the tips. Now I wanted to start off with the Carlton v Geelong game. Of course we both have tipped the same, but I do want to cover why he has gone Carlton. So first of all, he said that Carlton are in better form, winning 4 out of their last 5 compared to Geelong who have only won 1 out of their past 5. More midfield depth on Carlton's side, and have conceded over 100 points, Geelong, in 3 of the past 5 games. So I tend to agree with that as well. I do think that the Carlton midfield are going to pretty much dominate the majority of this game. I don't expect a few midfielders to come back like Dangerfield. If he was in, I think they'd have a little bit of a chance, but I think the more experienced Carlton midfield will stand up. I think that Sam Walsh may get a little bit of attention from Tom Atkins, but I think they've got enough depth through there, the Blues from Cripps and that they'll be more than fine. Geelong, like my brother has mentioned, they have conceded over 100 points in 3 of their past 5 games. So their defence isn't as good as it once was. And I think it'll either be Owies or a small forward, definitely, of Carlton will go to Tom Stewart. And I think that's been the real key to beating Geelong for quite a while now, is to go to Tom Stewart early and take him out of the game. And for the last few weeks, he hasn't been able to get away. So I think Tom Stewart's just going to find a way to break the tag, because that's the real reason that the Cats are really struggling at the moment. On the other side of things, the Cats, I think, have to somehow get Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron to fire. Cameron has played a little bit up the ground this year. He's good up the ground, but he's not kicking enough goals. And Tom Hawkins, he's been up and down with his form. There was a whole month period where he didn't kick a goal. I think there is one advantage the Cats do have, which is their small forwards. I think if the likes of Myers, Close, and Stengel can hit the scoreboard, they may be in with a bit of a chance, the Cats. But I think the midfield battle is where it's going to be won, and I think Carlton will pretty much dominate the majority of that. After that, we've got the Brisbane and Port Adelaide game. This one is at Adelaide Oval. Now, my brother, the reason why he has picked Brisbane to beat Port Adelaide is he says that Port Adelaide haven't competed against the better sides this year very well. Even though the position of the Lions doesn't say that, the Lions have looked better recently. So since the bye, they've won the last 2 games. I agree with that. Hipwood kicking 6 goals in the past 2 weeks and Danaher with 5. So they've both been recently in very good form. And I think we saw that last week with against the Giants with Jesse Hogan and Riccardi. Neither of them kicked goals, but they look very dangerous. So if Port Adelaide can't shut them down, they could be a real concern for the Lions. He also brought up the fact that if Port Adelaide don't tag Zorko, they'll lose the game really quickly. So Dane Zorko has been doing very well off halfback this year and probably been their shining light in a lot of games when they've played really poorly, the Lions. The reason why I've gone Port Adelaide is because I think they need to respond this week. They are a bit of a response team at times, Port Adelaide, and they played pretty poorly against the Giants. They could have been beaten by a whole lot more. So that's where I'm kind of leaning towards that. And I think Port Adelaide, if they can match it in the middle of the ground, I think they got decimated against the Giants last week. I think they can get a little bit on top of the Lions. I am not exactly 100% convinced on the Lions just yet. They have beaten the Bulldogs, who are a very inconsistent team, and they beat St Kilda, and that was just a shootout. So I'm not exactly convinced on the Lions just yet. I think that they are still a long way off their best. And Port Adelaide, I think that they were going to come a bit sluggish off the bye, and that's kind of how they played against the Giants. So that's where I'm kind of leaning for on that one, why I'm tipping Port. And another big reason is, of course, playing at Adelaide Oval. The Lions haven't had the best record there. Now, finally, we're going to talk about the Sydney Derby, the Swans and the Giants. This one is at Giants Stadium. So my brother has picked the Giants. It's very interesting. Me and my brother have kind of swapped against them. We're kind of trying to pick when the Swans are going to lose a game. So, look, I don't think by any means the Swans will go all the way undefeated for the rest of the season, go all the way and win the flag. I think that if Sydney are to go and win the flag, they're going to lose a few games on the way. I think, again, like last week against the Crows, this is a bit of a danger game for Sydney. My brother has said that Sydney haven't started well recently, which is very true. They haven't won a first quarter since round 9. He does think that it will cost them this week if it happens again. Also, the home ground advantage, the Swans can't keep winning. So, yeah, he's kind of said that eventually it has to drop off. I had it on the Giants, but I think I've gone back to Sydney on the fact that the Giants had a good win against the Power. But like I said previously, Port Adelaide were very sluggish and played pretty poorly. I think the Giants got them at their weakest. Well, not at their weakest, but at one of their weaker points. And I think Sydney at full strength, basically, I think that they're going to really do well. I think a big one, though, is Toby Bedford. If you don't know, he tagged last week. I think it was the first time I've ever seen him do it. And he did very well on Butters and Rosie. So he'll either go to Heaney, Warner, or Goulden. I think with his body type, I think it will probably be Goulden, because I don't think he can match up with Warner on the run, and Heaney will be too strong. So I think he'll probably go to Goulden, which will be interesting, because most teams have kind of targeted Heaney or Warner. So it'll be interesting how Goulden can face with the tag. I do remember last year against the Gold Coast Suns, he faced a tag, Errol Goulden. It didn't really do very well for the first half when Took Miller went to him. But in the second half, they broke the tag for some reason, and he ran riot. So I'll be interested to see how the Giants go in with a thought of defensive play on the Swans midfielders. I think it's going to be a really big game. I've picked Sydney. My brother has picked the Giants. And for the rest of the week, we've tipped the exact same. And I do think it is a little bit of a danger game for the Demons, because I don't think they're in very good form at all. In North Melbourne, despite dropping a 53-point lead, they have been playing very well since their bye. So, well, they've played well for their standards anyway. So I do think North Melbourne could be in with a sneaky chance, but look, I'm not tipping them by no means. But guys, of course, with all the tips being read out and everything in between, we will take a look at our AFL tipping comp for the channel. So, this week, I have dropped down to 6th. Really embarrassing. I got 5 this week. So many of you guys got the perfect week. Basically, the breakout between anyone was the Bulldogs Fremantle game. And unfortunately, that was basically the point of who's going to get 5, who's going to get 6 this week. So looking at it, Brandon is still on top. I don't think he's dropped off the top spot since... I don't even know if he's dropped off at all this year. He's still sitting on top with 84 tips. He's in front by 1 on Paul, who is on 83 tips, so 1 tip behind. Also to Brendan as well. He picked the perfect margin in the first game of the round. So congratulations to him. Looking at my brother, he has gone to 9th. Interesting, he got 4 this week. If you got 4 this week, I don't think you did very well. I got 5, and I was pretty annoyed. I do think the Bulldogs Fremantle game was hard to pick, because you don't know which Bulldogs is going to show up. But I do think that the league is starting to set up pretty nicely. Brandon has a 2-point lead on second. Sorry, a 1-point lead on second and a 3-point lead on third, who is Harvey. So a couple of players starting to pull forward now. I am 6 tips off the pace. My brother is 8 tips off the pace. And of course, we have to check down the bottom. Kirk is bottom of the tipping comp. So it looks like that... I can't remember if he was on the bottom last week. It looks like that he would have been, because he got 5. The other people around him got 4. I think Brooke's been down there for a couple of weeks. I know Daniel was there a while ago, but had a good week. A couple of weeks ago to break above that. So it looks like Kirk has the bottom spot at the moment. And of course, if you finish bottom spot, you're going to get absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. You are... I mean, maybe we'll get you a dunce cap. That'd be pretty funny. But that's kind of all the tipping stuff for this week, guys. That is the league as well. So make sure to let me know down below, guys, who do you think's going to win this week. And also let me know if you think there's a big upset brewing.